There are so many Christmas stories out there. There are so many stories that Santa tells. But my favorite story is the one I think you probably all know, but I will tell it anyway, because it is my favorite. And it's a story that goes back into history. As we turn back those pages of time, we take it all the way back to the 1700s, the late 1700s. It might actually have been the very early 1800s, but now that I think of it, it probably was. And there was a family that lived very close in to the edge of the Great Black Forest in Germany. Close to several villages, not too far from a decent-sized town. There was a family, a very happy family, a family with a father who was tall, who was strong, who was very successful with his small business, which was wood cutting. He cut wood in the Black Forest and brought it out during the winter on great sledges and during the summer on wagons pulled by horses. He was fairly successful for his time. And he had a beautiful wife, a loving mother, who had children, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5 children. But there was a war that developed, and Germany was involved. And the father was called away to serve. He was not happy about it, but it was his duty, and it was the law that you served. And so he did. And that was in the summer. And everyone thought the war would be over by fall. But it wasn't. The war went on and on. And without the father, there was no money from the business. No one else could do that wood cutting. The mother with her children did a little bit, and she made a little bit of money by cutting small kindling and taking it to the villages that were very close by. They had just enough to survive, just barely enough food to keep them from starving. They had enough wood to burn in the fireplace to keep them from freezing, but certainly not to celebrate. And as Christmas approached, the war continued on and on, as wars tend to do. And the children were thinking St. Nicholas. And the mother was certainly worried because she had no money at all for toys for the children. She was barely keeping enough money to feed them, to keep them from freezing by getting used clothing from other people in the village. Their log home, just inside the Black Forest, kept them from freezing because it was strong. The father had built it to protect them from the winds and from the huge drifts of snow. And when you entered that cabin, you could smell the wood burning. That was the thing that always was there for them, that always reminded them of the days and the nights when their father was there. And they had been a happy family with plenty of food, plenty of clothing. When holidays approached, there would be presents and candy. But not this year. This year, the only thing they had that brought them back was the smell from the fireplace, the smell of the wood that was burning, the fact that they had each other, and the mother was so loving. But the clock kept ticking. They had a beautiful clock over the fireplace on the mantle that the father had hand-hewn with his axe from a great oak tree. And that clock that they were so proud of kept ticking every second of every hour of every day. And Christmas Eve was actually upon them. The mother was trying so hard not to cry. Her cheeks, which after 5 children had grown just fully rounded, had a tear occasionally creeping down. She felt so bad. There was nothing for the children. And so they went out that night, and they did realize they could have a Christmas tree. So they cut down a small evergreen, and they brought it in, and they fastened it up with rocks all the way around the base near the fireplace. And with a few small candles that had been saved over from better times, they were placed on the branches to illuminate the tree and illuminate the room. And they sang songs, and they played silly little games that the kids knew well. But there were no presents, and they all knew. But the children still hoped that St. Nicholas would visit. The mother finally got them off to bed and quieted down. And again, part of what quieted them down was that beautiful smell of that little evergreen pine near the fireplace in that room where they all had played. And the darkness crept in, and it started with the corners of the room, and it eventually enveloped everything except that glowing area around the fireplace, the Christmas tree. The children all decided they would roll up in their blanket and sleep on the floor there in front of the fireplace, near that tree with that fabulous smell. And that night, after they were all asleep, in the beams that had been hand-hewn by their father, that ran the length of the room, the tiny little spiders decided it was time they too could share the warmth. And so they began to spin their little silken threads down from the beam above the Christmas tree. And they made themselves comfortable in the branches of the tree. At first there was only one, and then there were a dozen, and then there were 50, all down with those beautiful white silken strands that came all the way from the beam in the ceiling down onto the branches of the tree. And as the spiders went darting here and there in the tree and enjoying the warmth from the fireplace and just the beautiful place that it was for them, so unusual, a tree inside, so comfortable, so nice, so friendly. And they spun their webs, and it wasn't long before the tree was completely encased in a series of webs, all white, silken, and splendorful. It was amazing. The tree was so beautiful. And in the morning when the children awoke, they looked at that tree and they wondered at how it could be so beautiful. They didn't know that during the night, St. Nicholas had actually found their little home on the edge of the Black Forest. And when he found it, he had let himself in. And he saw the beautiful tree. And he saw the children. And he understood immediately there was so little here. He went out to his sleigh and he brought in oranges and hard candies and dates. Oh, treasures. And small hand-carved wooden toys and dolls. And old Santa knew how happy they'd be in the morning but before leaving, reached out, said a special prayer, touched that tree, touched those silken threads. And as he left, as the door slid shut, the click, he mounted the sleigh and was gone. And those children who had awakened to that beautiful, shining tree, with all those lovely presents and real oranges, the mother awakened. And she went to the tree and she broke off part of the web. And that was when she realized that that web of silk had turned to silver. And for all the years ahead, they never, ever wanted for anything. And that clock on the mantle, from Christmas to Christmas, happily went tick, 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 to bring a new, happy Christmas every year. And that's what I wish for each of you.